Hello and welcome to 100 Days Plus. Violence in Paris, where police clash with protesters during May Day demonstrations. One police officer is set on fire and badly burned just 6 days before France picks its next president. In a first, Japan's largest warship has been deployed to protect a US naval vessel as tension rises with North Korea. Donald Trump says he would consider meeting Kim Jong-un. The US government will stay open for business. It shouldn't be remarkable, but it is. To get there, Mr. Trump had to give up on some key campaign promises. And these are the faces of war. A new exhibition focuses on American soldiers who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. Welcome, I'm Katty K in Washington. It is May Day. Christian has the day off, and we hope that he's spending it a lot more peacefully than the scenes in Paris today. A French police officer there was engulfed in flames and seriously burned. Well, before Lucy joined us, she was out on the campaign trail today. Here's her report. Well, we will find out in 6 days' time what the French decide to do with their election. We have passed the 100-day mark of the Trump presidency, but it's clear he will keep the world and the US very busy, which is why we are extending this program. In the last couple of hours alone, Donald Trump has broken global diplomatic norms by saying he would meet the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. That may worry America's allies. Japan has just sent its biggest warship to protect a US Navy supply vessel, a historic first for Tokyo. The BBC's Rupert Wingfield-Hayes has more. That's what everybody's worried about at the moment. The mistakes could be made, either with conventional weapons or, God forbid, with nuclear weapons. I discussed the North Korean threat a short time ago with former State Department official Nicholas Burns. Nick Burns, the headlines in major South Korean papers this morning are questioning whether the Trump administration is being consistent on the issue of North Korea. Particularly the issue of whether the South Koreans are going to have to pay for the THAAD missile defense system. And there have been mixed messages from the president and then from his national security advisor this weekend. How much of a problem is that in dealing with a situation as volatile as this? Okay, Nick Burns, thanks very much for coming to the studio. Good to have you in Washington.
Thank you, Katty.
We don't have Christian today, but with me now and throughout the rest of the programme is Ron Christie. He's a former advisor to George W. Bush, now a BBC political analyst. Ron, thanks very much for coming in. Sean Spicer in the White House press briefing just a few moments ago on the issue of whether President Trump will meet Kim Jong-un, which he said in an interview earlier this morning he would do, or he would consider it, said that the key issue here is under the right circumstances. Sean Spicer also said that they would have to have signs of good faith from the North Koreans, insisted that the conditions are not there right now, and that he'd had to bring down some of the tension and the rhetoric. President Trump says, in an interview a couple of hours ago, I'd consider meeting the North Korean leader. Now we have Sean Spicer saying, not so fast. OK, Ron, stay with us. 5 weeks before Election Day, Downing Street has been forced to counter a story in a German newspaper that says Theresa May and the European Commission president had a contentious dinner recently. The newspaper reported there were sharp disagreements last week about how quickly a deal could be reached over the rights of British and EU citizens, as well as how much the UK owed the EU. British officials insist it was a constructive meeting. Here's the BBC's Leila Nathu. With all this going on, critical elections in France, in Britain, the crisis in North Korea, you might think that keeping government up and running was a given. Here in America, it's in fact headline news. The US government will not, after all, shut down. Congress hammered out a deal late Sunday night. Donald Trump decided to give up, at least for now, on some key campaign promises. In the new US budget, there's no money for Mexican border wall or for a force to deport illegal immigrants. But any suggestion that the president has backtracked doesn't come across in this new TV ad released today to tout the achievements of his first 100 days. OK, Ron Christie, thank you. Stay with us. Who needs Christian anyway, right?
Exactly.
OK, quick look at other news coming from around the world. More on May Day. Turkish police have broken up May Day demonstrations in Istanbul. They used tear gas on a group of around 200 anti-government protesters who were trying to make their way to Taksim Square. Dozens of demonstrators were arrested for defying a ban on marching. And this was the scene in Athens, Greece, where thousands of people have also taken part in anti-austerity rallies. They've been protesting against further cuts proposed by the government as it tries to secure the next instalment of international bailout funds. Train and ferry workers are also holding a 24-hour strike. That's also part, of course, of the May Day protests. Among the foreign policy challenges which Donald Trump inherited are the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are still going on. Since the war on terror started 16 years ago, more than 2.5 million American soldiers have been deployed to the two countries. But the politics of war has often gained much more attention than those actually doing the fighting. Now a new exhibition here in Washington is trying to change that. Jane O'Brien's taken a look. Ron, it sometimes feels America's been at war forever in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's 13 years. But what always strikes me about it is how few Americans, regular Americans, know people that are fighting there. It's like they are a separate part of our society. Okay, Ron Christie, thanks very much for joining us. You've been watching 100 Days Plus from BBC News. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Christian will also be back in London. For now, though, from me, Katty K in Washington, thanks for joining us.